Well, greetings again. So, the first policy issue and reform issue that I would like to begin talking about is corruption in government. And how do we hold politicians and other public officials accountable? So, to begin this series of videos on government corruption, I would like to talk about the issues of the referendum and the recall. Now, in a lot of the Western states, these already exist. You head eastward from the West Coast, and it becomes less common to have the referendum and the recall, if not completely non existent. Well, if a public official can, say, campaign on an issue and then completely turn around after winning the election, so, just paying lip service to the people, and then completely turn around after the election and do contrary to what it was that they represented. Well, in a case like that, one can't really fairly say that the people gave their consent. They were lied and manipulated to give their consent. But their consent was for the basket of apples instead of the bushel of lemons. And a lot of times we end up with the lemons, even though we want the bushel of apples. Or basket of apples, sorry. So, we should be able to, at all levels of government, including the presidency, but limited to the Supreme Court, be able to recall all public and elected officials. And, maybe it would be beneficial to expand this to the Supreme Court if there was sufficient evidence to say that the Supreme Court was not doing their job. But in any case, any body of government, and not even necessarily government, any body of power, whether it be governmental power or corporate power, needs to have some mechanisms to hold these powers accountable for their behaviors and actions. So therefore, I am a huge fan of the power of the people to recall their elected officials and remove them from office if they are not doing an adequate job or completely misrepresented who they are when they were trying to get in office in the first place. Secondly, the referendum. Now, some of you may be familiar with the referendum, some of you may not be familiar with the referendum. If you're not familiar with it, it is just simply the people's ability to institute law outside of the legislative branch. So people collect signatures, they get enough signatures, it goes on the ballot. Once it's on the ballot, the people can have a vote. It completely bypasses the legislative branch. Still has to be signed off by the executive branch, but that's even with that, reforms can be made to bypass that if that is a necessary step in avoiding a politics of corruption. Well, I'm also a fan of the referendum. Because, you take a policy, for example. I know in the last video I made, talked about how many of the DFL politicians that are looking to replace Dayton, 4 out of 5 of them want to legalize marijuana. Well, the last poll that I read said that 56% of Minnesotans want to legalize recreational marijuana. It's now the majority. 60% of Americans in general want to legalize recreational marijuana. Well, when we have politicians that are in office that, despite the actual will of the people, they hold up progress in giving the people what they want. And well, if the people aren't getting what they want, then, once again, it goes back to the question of how is the government representative? If it's representative, it should be reflective of the wants and desires of the people. I would say that at the point that it is no longer representative of the wants and desires of the people, it can no longer be called a representative government. So this is where the referendum comes in. If those who are elected are unwilling to do the will of the people, it should be the right of the people to bypass the politicians, to pass legislation that the people deem desirable, regardless of the opinion of the representatives, because the representatives are there to represent. And if they're not doing that, they're not doing their job, and therefore, maybe they should be recalled. But in the meantime, should the people not get what they want simply because the politicians are out of step with the rest of society? So, the recall and the referendum would be 2 major components that I would promote and reforming the government and reducing corruption. So this is my, my piece and my thoughts on referendum and recall. I have a number of other videos coming up on how to handle government corruption, including direct democracy at the local level as a way to make the local political systems more efficient in meeting the needs and desires of the immediate constituents. So, if you're finding this interesting or intriguing, please come back. Watch out for my other videos, and I'll check everyone later.